really relate my style and my own personal aesthetic through, how I DJ and trap. Trap is trap is raw, trap is trill. And that's kind of the side of me that not a lot of people get to see, that I'm kind of showing more now as I get older, just more comfortable in myself. I've always kind of had more of a masculine energy to myself.
Calling all of my black girls. Hey there. Welcome to CIRCAPURPLE's Purple Conversations, a black girl's conversation about faith, soul, and my opinion. It's Ty. Hey y'all, I know I have been missing in action for a few weeks, but I just wanted to just kind of, just re-strategize a little bit. I know I've been doing solo episodes and I still will be doing solo episodes, but I wanted to just create a more richer experience with you all. So I have been reaching out to a few people so I can do a few interviews just to give just more than just my perspective. While I am the main black girl on Purple's Conversations and you'll always hear from me and my perspective, I think it would not be a well-rounded conversation if I didn't invite other people in to have the conversation. So as we get into the podcast, you'll hear later an interview that I'm doing with Miss Asia Horne. I've known her from afar for a few years now, and we're going to have a more candid conversation regarding her evolution into being a DJ. But I just want to say, I really thank everybody so far that has rocked with me and who has listened to the podcast and who have maybe shared it with somebody on social media or, wherever you've been. I thank you for just listening in and just kind of talking to me. So without you all, I still wouldn't be anybody. So I just really thank you all for just supporting me thus far. So without further ado, let's hear what Miss Asia has to talk about on Purple Conversations. So, hey, all of my Purple Conversations listeners, I'm here with Asia Horne. I met her a few years ago when she launched her magazine. She has a magazine. I think she still has a magazine, Empire Life Mag, and I went to her launch party for it. And when I saw her and met her, I fell in love with her from afar. I don't think she knows that, but so Asia, tell everybody about yourself, like your background, where you come from, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. And I definitely didn't know that, so I'm just teasing over here. But yeah, so I'm originally from Grand Rapids, Michigan. I was actually born in Flint, Michigan. A lot of my family still is there, and I definitely, have roots there, but I grew up in Grand Rapids, Michigan, specifically Kentwood, Michigan. And I just want to be very specific about that because not a lot of people, are familiar with Michigan overall. So I just want to be very clear about where I'm from too. But from there, I've always just been a creative child. I've always, done things creatively, no matter what it was. I used to always take construction paper and make books out of it, or once the MySpace page and everything came around, I was on the message boards and all that good stuff. But that's where I actually began to start with graphic design. I was about 12 or 13, just on the chat rooms, on the message board, and I was introduced to graphic design through people designing like their signatures, like for what they had on the bottom of their messages. And I was like, oh, I want one of those. That was cool. And I just started from there. And back then, it was called Paint Shop Pro, was the main design program. And I just started to teach myself on that, and it just progressed. Since then, I went to college out here at Grand Valley State University, and that's where I also pledged Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated in college as well, but that really gave me another platform to design for, because we always had events, we always had things going on, and it just was a open field of things that I could design for. So I really just started to design even more in college. I took a class or two, but what people don't really know is that I didn't go to school for graphic design or for art. I actually went to school for advertising and public relations. So after I graduated, all of the jobs that I've had since college had something to do with marketing and design. And it's actually funny how that worked out, because practically none of my jobs had anything to do with my major. But overall, just since then, every job I've had, I've worked where I designed restaurant menus. I designed in like healthcare and did brochures and catalogs and things like that. And for that job, actually, is what had took me to Chicago. I was dating a guy from Chicago at the time, but that just worked out for me because I always planned on moving to Chicago no matter what. So it just worked out that way. And after college, I ended up moving out there, and I got that job with the healthcare company designing for them. But that's when I had revisited an idea of mine that I had right towards the end of college, was to create a digital platform for women of color entrepreneurs, because at that time social media was still relatively new. We were starting to really get into the thick of things, but more people than ever at that time are starting to just come out on social media with their own brands, with their own businesses. And I saw a lot of young Black women doing it, and I was like, man, it's just something that we need to pay attention to, but with our attention on it, because there were platforms like Black Enterprise that were already existing. Gravity had just came out around that time, but none had that specific Black millennial woman, entrepreneurial focus. So I just wanted to create that at that time, and that's what had brought about what you mentioned earlier, Tyra, Black Empire Life magazine. That's what I ended up calling it, and I launched that 2015.
Yeah, I think so.
Yep, 2015, and I pretty much hit the ground running with that. I still had my job at that time, but you wouldn't have even thought I did, because I was always, like low-key at my desk typing emails, trying to get things going on my side, making calls and stuff, just getting the ball rolling there. And I was really, really networking and connecting in Chicago at that time. I had just moved out there a few months before, so naturally, you just want to get to know people in the city and, get familiar. But I had a big intention of why I wanted to get to know people at that time. So by the time the launch came around for Empire Life magazine, it was just an amazing night. It was something that I never even would have expected, and it's something I still, reflect on. And I'm just super proud about, because just, considering my background and not being from Chicago, but being just embraced and really thriving in that moment, it meant the world to me. And from that, I was able to establish and really cultivate, relationships that I still have now, which is why we're here,
Yeah.
So, yeah, but that was pretty cool. That was a very fun time of my life. And at the same time, of course, being in the midst of a whole bunch of powerful, amazing Black women, starting their own businesses and really wanting to give them a platform, because ultimately Empire Life was to create a platform of knowledge, because I believe that having a foundation will really help people no matter what they do. If they really have the foundation and the resources and the tools, to equip themselves early on, they can really make sure that they ensure, longevity in whatever they do. So I wanted to establish that for, the young Black entrepreneurs and who were trying to go about creating their own businesses, creating their own brands, and just having a space where, established entrepreneurial women could tell their stories, where we would interview, women who we saw doing great things and kind of get more insight specifically from an entrepreneurial standpoint. We had contributors, of course, sharing their knowledge. It was just a really great initiative overall. But it only lasted about 3 years. I had went through a few transitions on my end. Throughout all of that, I had quit my job a little bit after the launch, and I hit, the freelance full-time life head on. But that came with a lot of ups and downs.
Don't I know that?
Yes.
Yes.
There was a lot going on, but a lot of lessons, for sure. So I ended up quitting my job, going full time, learning, for sure, systems and getting things in order, because no matter what, of course, freelancers and entrepreneurs know there's going to be slow periods, and you have to be able to sustain through those and make sure you set yourself up. And I didn't know none of that. And it's kind of funny because, of course, I have this platform and I'm like, yeah, all this knowledge, but here I'm over here bumping my head and stuff. But of course, things in retrospect. So, yeah, and ended up having to leave Chicago because it just made sense at that time. Things weren't really going too well with the freelance stuff at that time. It was going super well when I first started because, of course, everybody's excited and want to help out. I'm like, oh, yeah, signing contracts, all that good stuff. But, of course, as time progressed, you learn that some people aren't as, excited to pay those invoices on time, and make sure that they're responsive and all that stuff, and just really learning through, the bumping heads of really tightening up my contracts and making sure that I'm clear on my side, in terms of timelines and stuff like that. So, really learning. It was a huge learning period, but it brought me back home to Grand Rapids, Michigan. I had moved back in with my dad and my family at that time. And I was just like, because I didn't want to necessarily move back home. Of course, I'm grateful and humbled to always have a home base in Grand Rapids, especially with my family. So no matter what, no matter how life can take its course, I know I'll always be secure here. But at that time, it was just like, I just need somewhere to, kind of
regroup,
hang out for a little while, and recoup. And I actually ended up going through a breakup at that time with my, then boyfriend. So it was just like, Lord, like just going through, at that time. So I started to really talk to my best friend, who was really an anchor for me throughout it all. And she was just starting to, help me brainstorm different things and different routes to go. Because, of course, anybody who knew me knew that at that time, I didn't like being back home. Like, I didn't want anything to do with being back home. I was already so used to, the city life in Chicago, and I loved it. Like, Chicago was everything, still is everything. And being back home, I was like, I just got to go somewhere else. So she started to help me brainstorm things, and around this time, she was starting to get interviewed and pretty much courted by this company called Jackie, which, is a hair care, multicultural, hair care brand. And around that time, I was picking up projects, coincidentally with other hair care brands. I was working with Design Essentials, doing a few visuals for them. I worked with Lotta Body on a, short little campaign for them. So it actually happened, coincidentally, but of course everything happens for a reason. And she was like, hey, it's looking like I'm about to take on this job with them. And of course, I need a graphic designer. So if you're down, like, you can come, you can do this. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to do it. And Jackie is based in Atlanta. So she was like, well, if you take on this job, of course, we have a lot of things going on in Atlanta. So if you want to do it, then you would most likely have to move here. And at that time, I didn't have any obligations.
Right.
I was like, you know what? Sounds good. And a couple years ago from that, Atlanta had always crossed my mind. I honestly think Atlanta crosses a lot of, Black people's minds at some point. It's like, Atlanta. Like, it's just like a no-brainer. That's where Black people thrive, and, it's just Black people everywhere, and just a very beautiful place to be overall. So I was like, you know what? Why not? So I ended up starting to look for apartments out there, and, but before I ended up moving, though, while I was still going through my motions, I started to be more interested in DJing. Just because I was really looking for a creative outlet, but just something for me. I think that a lot of people skip over, honestly, having either hobbies or things that they do that specifically bring joy to them, no matter what. And that was something that I was looking for at that time, and I found it in DJing because I've always naturally loved music, always been into old school music, specifically the Isley Brothers are my favorite band. And even back then, like at my open house for high school, nothing but old school music, and you would think that my daddy did the playlist, but no, I wasn't, So I've always been into music in college. I've always done like art, music-related things, because of course, being in a sorority, we strolled and stepped and needed things with, mixed music. So I would always mix our music, and it just was something that was like, Oh, and even DJing at our, house parties back then, I would have YouTube open and have the two windows and transition the volume, so it sounded like I'm blending and everything. But at that time, when I was back home before I moved to Atlanta, I just started following my DJ friends around in the city and expressing to them like, hey, I think I really want to take this seriously, and I want to learn, what it takes overall. So I just started following them to their sets and helping them, set up and break down. And of course, DJ sets normally take place late at night, so I would be out late at night, just all up in the mix, standing behind them most of the night, seeing how they, mix their music, how they pick their music, just really observing at that time and learning, the game from them.
Okay.
Yeah, so by the time I moved to Atlanta, I had that, in the back of my mind, like, okay, DJing is something that I want to explore more. So I started, working with Aunt Jackie's. Now I'm back full-time freelance, because when I came back home, I had picked up a little part-time job, because I've always been designing throughout, all this time. So that was something that stayed consistent throughout everything.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. So we're gonna just kind of going back a little bit, because I remember actually I was introduced to you through another person that I followed on social media, and that's Asia Horne. And I believe she did speak at the event, right? Yeah, so I had went to one of her events before, and then I just naturally followed her on social media, and then I remember her posting that she was going to be speaking at your event. So I was like, okay. And it's funny because right around that time when you were launching your magazine, I had been secretly working on a magazine myself. So
that's right.
yeah, e-magazine myself. So I was like, okay, you know what? Let me go check this out. Let me just see what it's about. I was like, naturally, so it was just like I was just drawn to it, and I'm like, let me just kind of see what's going on here. And so myself too, as a I get into graphic design. I self-taught myself from a little girl. Like I always made homemade like cards and things like that. And then when I started going to church, my church, we needed somebody like to create flyers and stuff for us. So I started playing around, and I wasn't even doing anything in any really professional software programs. I was like using Word and Publisher and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, as I began to do it more, I was like, you know what? It has to be some better program or software that I can do different things, because like naturally I'm like, I want to get rid of this background, or I want to do extra things with this particular photo. So I end up getting Photoshop, self-taught myself that, and then I end up going to school like maybe 3 years after that. And really it was a waste of money because they didn't teach me anything. because really they just give you the foundations, but design comes from the spirit. So it's like,
Right.
somebody can teach you some things, but it's like, design is up to the interpretation of the designer. So
Ab-
I was launching my magazine and amongst a whole lot of other things that I was into. But then it was like when I first met you, well, and I didn't even really meet you. I was just there at your event, but it was just like
Mhm.
something about you. I was just like, okay, I like this girl. Like,
No.
I don't know who she is. I don't know but it was just something about you that I was really, really drawn to. And then I end up having the opportunity to kind of slightly work with you again when we did, I want to say it was
Mhm.
Dr. Shantae's event.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it was just like that. So for me, like as a designer, I don't I don't even think I do have a style, but I don't think I've even gotten the chance to really explore it all the way because it's like I think I've gotten burnt out with designing because it's like um trying to make people happy when necessarily you're not working with the client, your ideal clients, and you're working with people that want to do certain, not to say that that has been all of my clients, but like sometimes when you're working with certain styles and they want this certain style, but then it's like, you're like, no, let's do something else. But then they want to do, they want to either do something that's
Right.
very trendy and you got this whole
Yeah.
out of this world type of idea. And they're like, no, I don't really like that. I'm not feeling that, and it's just like, okay, I guess I'll do what So
Right.
basically, that was just kind of like my experience with it. But then one day, I'm just on social media and I see this thing about Venus FlyyTrap. And I'm like, hold up. Cause that's like I feel like I'm a nostalgic person. I'm in love with the 70s and the 60s
Yes.
and the
Yes.
50s. So
Mhm.
it was just something that automatically like caught my attention right away. And I was like, who is that? And then so when I clicked on the profile, because I don't think you had changed your name yet on
Yes.
Instagram. I think you were still under
Mhm.
your name, but then you were posting this stuff about this DJ and stuff. And I was just like, okay, wait a minute,
Yeah. Yeah.
it caught my eye. So I like Instagram. I'm just now really, really, really being more active on Instagram and really paying a lot of attention to Instagram. So, I know you had got off of Facebook or it wasn't on Facebook as much. So it was like every blue moon when I would get on Instagram and kind of scroll through, you'll post something and I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So like I dub you in my mind like my version of Solange that I can get to. Not to say that you
Ah.
are Solange, but that's who you remind me of. Like
Wow.
like I love Solange. I love Erica
Me
Badu. I
too.
like those
Me
free
too.
yeah, I love those free spirited type of women. I really relate to those women. I really connect to those women. So anybody operating in that same type of vibe, like I
Mhm.
connect to them. Like I may not reach out a lot or I may not say nothing. I'm not like and I'm not saying this in a bad connotation, but I never had like a groupie personality. I'm always the type of
Yeah.
person that like watches people from afar, but I talk everybody up that I love to my friends. It's like, oh, I could be having a casual conversation like, oh, you should check out this girl on Facebook. Her name, she go by Venus FlyyTrap with two Y's. So like I'll do stuff like that, whatever, because
Yeah.
it's like I just love that type of energy. So
Yeah.
I remember just one day I was like, I love this butterfly that I'm seeing here because that's kind of like how I feel about women that's like walking
Mhm.
in their own the real essence of who they are. I just always equate it to
Yeah.
just coming into like this butterfly. So
Wow.
just like tell me like how did you come up with the name of Venus Flytrap? Like what is the like the significance of that?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great question, but I have to just tell you thank you. Like,
Oh, you're
wow.
welcome.
Yeah, that's amazing to me. And Solange, definitely, I love her. Like, I know this sounds wild to say, but I say often Solange is my Beyonce. Like,
Oh
but,
yeah.
but yeah, and in terms of the name, name, because of course names are very, very important, just overall, especially when you're being intentional about, the way you pick a name. And I'm one of those people that I don't like to go back and forth. Like, let me just pick something now and I can change it later. If I can put that initial intention on it and really grow within it, I want to do that. So when I was thinking of a DJ name, I was going back and forth. And don't get me wrong, I was picking names and just random. Like, I was looking like, DJ Ultraviolet, DJ something, just to really signify, like, just my overall vibe or my overall, aesthetic. And I think it may have been, I try to always pinpoint when I came up with the name, but it might have been during my time in New Orleans. I went to New Orleans for a trip around that time. And I'd always, when you're trying to think of a name of something, like you're just randomly looking at stuff, like, I wonder how that name would be. I wonder how that name would be. So, around that time, I just kept rumbling around, what could a name be? What can my name be? And I don't remember how I necessarily landed on it, if I may have saw it or if I may have just thought about it, but Venus FlyyTrap had just came to my mind, and I was like, man, Venus FlyyTrap, because of course, even after picking out a name, you kind of go through like the layers, like how can I really make this significant within my brand of what I'm, trying to establish. And Venus FlyyTrap off the rip just sounded so nostalgic and something that you would hear, probably around the 70s and things like that. And I actually learned later on that the dad from Sister, Tim Reed, he had DJ like a while ago, like in the 70s, and that was his DJ name. I thought that was funny. I was like, oh wow. And I hear that often, like, it's of course like the older guys, like, yeah, there was a DJ named this before, but it's way more sexy, chew, or whatever.
Right.
But overall, I do take on that too, because with being a DJ or just any type of performer, entertainer, alter ego, it's definitely an alter ego of me and kind of how I really want to express myself creatively. But just to break down what Venus FlyyTrap means, just in the three, basic words, Venus, you can break Venus down as, of course, femininity, because, Venus and Mars, how they always, talk about that in relation to the gender. So femininity, but specifically divine femininity. And, of course, astrology, because, Venus, the planet, things like that, and love. Venus is the planet of love. So that's the layers that I chose for Venus. Fly, of course, when you hear fly by itself, it just means being, fresh and having your own style and really being super authentic and just effortlessly fly. So I, got that off of there just in terms of how I want to really relate my style and my own personal aesthetic through, how I DJ and trap. Trap is trap, trap is raw, trap is trill. And that's kind of the side of me that not a lot of people get to see, that I'm kind of showing more now as I get older, just more comfortable in myself. I've always kind of had more of a masculine energy to myself, too. And that may have just came from really growing up around my dad, around my brothers, and things like that. But I've always had more of like a masculine type of energy to me that people can, probably see when they meet me in person. But I kind of get that off of there. And that's kind of like the polarity between, how I'm able to express myself through Venus FlyyTrap. Because, of course, I'm super feminine. I really take control of my womanhood and, my space there. But I'm, have my masculine energy, too. So I'm able to integrate that overall within that. And plus, Venus FlyyTrap, the plant itself, like, I just love how unassuming it can be. If you don't really know what it is or what it does, but it can snap. Like, it can really snap and eat you up, and I love that layer too, because that's something that I really take pride on, is just kind of being savage in the way I go about things, and especially being a woman DJ in the world of, a male-dominated industry, you really got to be established. You really got to be a man-eater. Like, you can't have anybody, take control of you, because they will. They'll try to sway you a certain type of way or try to underestimate you. And I'm like, no, like, I'm off the top. Like, I'm coming with that energy that you're not going to, play me.
Right.
So, yeah, it's just like all that energy soaked up in one, and I've just been really able to do all of those things, but of course with the layer of nostalgia, because of course we always keep, mentioning the 70s. The 70s is the most influential, decade to me. If I could have been, around during that time, I would absolutely, choose to do that. So just having all those elements into one, I think it just made the perfect name.
Yeah, it's like almost like it's funny how relatable I feel towards your story with coming up, like and just operating in the space of Venus FlyyTrap, because like even for CIRCAPURPLE, for me, my whole identity is based on like just a 70s type vibe. It's just like
Yeah.
purple is my favorite color, and so for me it's like my aura. That's how I look at life for me. And I always say, when I can't put my name or a name on something, or can't put a emotion or whatever it is to something that may have happened to me, I just always say, okay, oh, it's just purple, or it happened somewhere around purple. So that's kind of like how I look at things. And then it was just like, I created CIRCAPURPLE so that I can have my outlet to just be. This was my creative license for me to be who I really feel like I am on the inside. Like I tell people, like if I had to yeah, and then I say to people, like if I had to describe myself, like I would say, like on the outside, I'm very reserved. I kind of like feel like not even so much reserved, but like I see myself classically like a Mary J. Blige. Like on the outside, I think I got this swag. I think I got this like style about myself or whatever. But then on the inside, like my blood is like a Solange, or my blood is like a Erica Badu. Like that's who I am on the inside. If you were able to get into my being, that's what you would see. And so like I said before, it's just like it's the attraction to people really walking. You could just tell when somebody is really walking into the person that they really was always destined to be. And it's so refreshing, and it's so it does something for me personally. I don't know about anybody else, but for me it does something, and it's like an encouragement. I think one time, and because I can remember everything, I'm a Cancer too. So
Yes, Cancer.
so I have like this, and like my favorite animal is an elephant. So it's like I remember stuff. So, and I think I remember like when you were, and I might have did this on Twitter, but I was just like, oh, I just love it. Like you're giving me such inspiration to really like walk in who I'm supposed to be, or the part of me that I've always hidden, because I knew I was sort of kind of weird, but I didn't want other people to say, to think that. But I'm like, let me just embrace the weirdness. It's okay. Even in relationships now, I embrace my weirdness. And it's like, if you're going to be in a relationship with me, you have to understand, like, I'm just a little weird, and you need to fall in love with that part of me,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, when I was going through your social media, and just kind of looking at everything, and I probably bounce around a little bit, but just kind of looking at everything, and I was like, you know what? One thing that I noticed, I was like, wait a minute, she doesn't use hashtags. And the reason why that caught my attention is because, like, as what they tell you, like when you're trying to grow a brand or anything like that or whatever, you need to use hashtags so people can find you or whatever the case may be. And so, so I was looking at that and I was like, this clearly is intentional. Not so much that you probably don't even think about it, but I'm like, the question that came to my mind, like, are you even trying to be found? Is it just like you're leaving it open to the universe, as they say, to allow the people that's supposed to follow you or supposed to gravitate towards you to just find you organically? Like, if that that's just kind of like what I was thinking about it. So is that a purposeful thing that you don't use hashtags?
No, I won't even lie, it's not. But I guess, and it's so funny, but it makes sense because in terms of how I interact with social media, it's always from the standpoint of creating content, not necessarily like really leveraging the content in terms of how you operate like as a social media manager. So whenever I post, I never even think of it like, let me put a hashtag. It's never even crossed my mind, to really try to bring in that. But with that being said, yeah, it's definitely, cultivating more an organic, connection that I'm able to have with people who do, find me. And of course, I'm starting to get, connected and just doing other things, having experiences and shows, however else you want to place it, to where, that kind of opens up my reach and helps me connect with people I haven't, been able to connect to before. But yeah, I've always, appreciated the organicness of that alone. Just in terms of all other people who follow me and who I follow back, and just, not having that intention of, I'm doing this because of this, and especially because it's coming from my personal page too. If I was to have positioned it solely as a business page or a brand page, I may have went about it a different way, but essentially I just ended up converting my personal page into my DJ, name, my DJ brand. But yeah, it's never been to the top of my mind at all to even think of it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, so and it's like for me right now, like I'm in a space of just really just being who I really want to be.
Yeah.
When I got started as an actual entrepreneur, it was I had written my first book, and I had written the book in like 2005, but I didn't publish the book until 2013, 14 ish. And I had been
Yeah.
looking for a literary agent and all of this different stuff, and I couldn't find one. So I ended up figuring out how to self-publish the book myself. And because I'm just
Yeah.
naturally like a leader to a certain extent, it was like once people found out that I knew how to publish book and I knew how to create a book cover and all of these different things, it's
Right.
like a business naturally bloomed out of that. But
Yeah.
now as I'm into it and have been doing it going on almost 10 years now, I realized I never wanted to be in business that way. I was always more of a creative, to be creative for myself, but not so much for
Yep.
other people. So then I found
Yep.
myself in this career that I never really wanted to be a part of, but because it was bringing in money and bringing in revenue, I kind of stuck with it. So,
Yeah.
for the last 2 years, I have been telling people, well, not so much people, but like some of my close associates, like, I just want to give up working with authors. I love authors. I love helping them, but I don't want to do it no more. My heart is not in it. You know, I'm just
Yep.
I'm just not there emotionally anymore, connected to it. And they're like, well, if it's bringing you in money, whatever, blah, 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 you should stick with it. But like last night, literally, just as I was preparing for your interview and preparing for an interview with another young lady that I have later on this evening, I just said, you know what? I'm giving myself permission to let go of an identity that I held
Yeah.
on to
Yeah.
because it was comfortable. And
Mhm.
as I was saying before, like even when we was talking offline before the interview started, it's like, I entered in full-time entrepreneurship, but then okay, because I'm letting go of this revenue source, yes, that means I may have to go back to work. And now I want to focus more so on what I really want to do, which is building my
Yeah.
podcast, which is working in my certified life coaching space, because that is where my heart is. I like to help people
Yeah.
in that realm. So
Yeah.
just I'm saying all that to say, like, you don't realize that just by you just walking in who you want to be organically, how much that influences other people, or how that
Mm.
gives other people like just the encouragement and the right to say, you know what, not so much that if she can do it, I can do it too, but no, if she can do it, she's telling me that I need to do it too. That's how I look at it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Wow. I'm telling you, I'm just getting so much from this. But no, absolutely. That's honestly the biggest intention I want people to have. If they were to look at me and just see what I'm doing, is to encourage them, like, yeah, like take advantage. Like, honestly, of course, we all know, that we're only going to be here for a limited amount of time, and during that time, you really should honestly do all the things that are true to you, because that's ultimately what your life purpose is doing those things that are true to you, that bring you joy, because those essentially are your gifts and the things that you're supposed to, explore through this life. And that's something that, I just learned on my own throughout, my motions, and that I kind of about how I even transitioned from creating something like Empire Life that was really rooted in like young professional, entrepreneurship and all that, stuff. But when I realized, I was like, like, I really like that I created this, and it's great. Like, I'm not taking anything away from Empire Life. I actually want to figure out how I can even possibly relaunch it, but with somebody who is passionate about entrepreneurship, in that way. But when I started to realize, like, I'm a creative at my core. If somebody was to ask me, like, who are you, or like, what do you do? Like, I create. Everything that I do, I create. And I started leaning more into, the artist side of me and the super creative side of me. And that's honestly the most pure and authentic side. And when I started to do that, especially through DJing, it's amazing to hear, like accounts from you who said, like, yeah, when I saw that, it gave me reassurance, and that's honestly what I want to do. So I'm just so humbled to hear that, from you, Ty, honestly, because that's the example that I want to lead, because, life is short, and we really have to make sure that during that time that we're doing, what we're supposed to do. And when I made that decision for myself, like, when I tell you, things became so aligned, and the opportunities that started to present themselves, I'm like, wow. Like, when I just made that decision for myself, everything opened up, and it's, been the most amazing and transforming experience through that. But to, ultimately encourage people to be like, yeah, when you truly find what, your gifts are, that's when you start to click into alignment for yourself, and you'll start to experience the flow and the effortless, that's a hard word, effortless opportunities,
Yeah.
that come along with it.
Right. And
it's been amazing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it like even encouraged me to finally pick up the camera that I've always wanted to do. Like, I'm a film person.
Yeah.
I love film. I'm very much into photography, and so I recently last year finally just kind of like stepped out, purchased my first DSLR camera. And so, of course it's a beginner's version, but I'm like working with it. Gonna take me a photography class. I'm actually working on a documentary that I hope that I'm hoping. I'm sorry, say that again.
I'm just saying, you better get it, girl.
Yeah.
You getting it.
Yeah,
You getting it cracking.
yeah, that I'm hoping that it's gonna, that I can finally put everything together and have it out towards the end of the year. So just kind of really like walking into all of these different spaces that I need to. It's like just really coming to grips that, okay, if I have to go back to work, it's okay, because I'm willing to start over so that I can really be, really walk in the things that I want to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for that, and just empower other people. That's the whole key. And that's what my life coaching is about. It's like, okay, I know I'm not the only woman, which is evident, but it's like I'm not the only woman who has been doing stuff all her life that is what people say she should do or whatever, but all along there's something else inside of me that wants to come out to say, no, this is what I really want to do. And I'm like, I know I'm not the only woman, so like it's like, how can I help empower women to do that and to walk into what it is like. And it's not even all about entrepreneurship. It's like whatever it is that you, it's like I can't stress it enough. If you want to be a bomb stay at home mom, let's figure out how to make that happen. Like if you want to be a
Yeah.
rock analyst or a scientist or whatever it is, like let's figure out how to make that happen. And that's what I'm all
Yeah.
about. So
Yeah.
I have like two last things because I don't want to hold you forever. But
Oh no, I love talking to you.
so yeah, so okay, I noticed that you have your mixes like on iTunes and Tidal and things like that. So
Yeah.
immediately like my business mind steps in and it's like, okay, how are you able to repurpose your mixes that are, of other artists into like that type of platform? Like how
Mhm.
how does that happen?
Yeah, so of course, when you use any type of music these days, copyright licenses, it's harder to create mixes because of those, kind of things in place. So generally, when I do use platforms like iTunes or Tidal or Spotify, I started to just produce playlists to where it's a broken down mix, of sorts, but to really let people get, more of a understanding of the type of music and the type of, feel, I want them to have. But especially for those playlists in particular, that, played into a concept that I'm actually exploring right now. It's part of my overall, I guess, creative concept for 2020, which is the moodering experience. So for those playlists, I just broke down each mood by color. So we have like mood orange, mood green, mood blue, and mood yellow so far. And going into what those moods actually represent, because of course when you use a mood ring, they break down the colors and they say what the colors represent, in relation to when you actually wear it on your finger. So I've always been, obsessed with mood rings since I was a kid, and just thought it would be a cool concept to explore in this way. So with those playlists, I use the different songs that relate to the different moods, and of course the colors helps me produce the visuals like that. But that's how I use those platforms. But if it is an actual like mix that I've done, I put them on SoundCloud, but I started to put them on my actual website, Venus FlyyTrap.com, simply because even on SoundCloud, they're starting to really crack down on music licensing. Which I understand, of course, everybody wants to get paid, for the things that they create, but it makes it harder for, people like the DJs who want to just share the music. And of course, mixes are where people can get introduced to music they haven't heard before and stuff like that. But when the licensing comes into play, it makes it harder to share those mixes. So I just started putting them on my website so people can just download them, from there, and it's not for any money. I actually doubt that who actually charges for mixes, honestly. But I actually doubt that I'll attach any type of money to the music just because I simply enjoy doing it. Like, creating music, curating the moods. Essentially, I love doing that because I've always liked to, I guess, help people feel the way that I feel. And you can do that through music. So yeah, with those playlists, through the mixes, I can just have them kind of tap into my vibration and really have a good and fulfilling experience after listening to it. That's what I want people to get from it.
Yes, I absolutely love that. Like when you were talking, I just saw like this museum feeling type of experience. Like we just come to like this
Yeah.
museum and you're just like DJing and the colors are changing and all kind of stuff. Like
Yeah. And it's so funny you call that out. I swear, yes, me and you are on the same, wavelength, because that's honestly how I see it, a couple of things that I have planned in the future going. But yeah, truly, even you referencing a museum, like I really see things from more of an artistic standpoint to where I would want the things that I create, even from an event standpoint, to be something I could do in a museum, in an art museum. So, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's like this has been such a refreshing conversation. I'm just very excited. I'm very elated just to have the conversation with you and just to have the opportunity to speak with you. Like I started the podcast in January. So far I've only like posted like 6 episodes and I took a small break because I'm like, okay, I want to have a richer experience with my listeners and like how do I do that? And I'm like, you know what? They don't want to just hear me talk all the time. I'm sure they want to hear from other people. So I really just had begun to just look through my social media and the different people that I enjoyed to watch from afar, or even if I do engage with them a lot or whatever, like who do I feel like can be of not insightful, but more so like just who can give my listeners some nuggets, who can give them a great experience, who can give them something that's just very rich. That's the word I want to use. Like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, and so I thought of you, and I'm like, hey, let me reach out and just see. You never know.
Right. You never know. But yes, I'm just so thankful, to you for this. And even hearing everything that you have going, I'm so excited. And just, when you hear people on that, pivot in their life to where they're really starting to click in to, what's for them, it's a beautiful, thing to witness. So I'm so excited, for you and everything that you have, and I can't wait to see what you're able to create too.
Thank you. And so tell the people where to find you, social media, websites, whatever. I did notice another thing. I don't know if you're still, because I didn't get a chance to check it, but I know you have a blog. I think it's a psychedelic
Dream, yeah.
dream, yeah.
Ooh, yes. Right, that's something I'll mention that in a second. But on social media, people can find me as Venus, so like the planet X, Flyy with 2 Y's, Trap, and you can type that in on Instagram and Twitter. I'm on Twitter most, so people want to, get a hold of me. That's the best way. Their website is just venusflytrap.com. Yes, I do have a personal blog called A Psychedelic Dream, and I launched it on my birthday last year, but of course, as we know, all creators, we usually pick up and drop things.
Yeah.
But it's something that I plan on picking back up because I honestly just wanted a place, no matter what the consistency is, no matter if I use it once a year or once a month or whatever, just to start housing the things that I think about, the things that I create, and essentially, act as a blog or a personal, digital space. So, yeah, and it blows my mind that you even brought that up. I'm like, dang, people even remember that because it was just a blip,
Yeah.
But, yeah, I do plan on bringing it back sooner or later, for sure.
Yeah, it's like and this is the thing about me, like when I think somebody is just dope and when I just really like them, I like them. It's like if no phoniness, if no pretense, it's like whatever. Like I don't even have to have a personal relationship with that person. It's just like, okay, this person is dope. I'm paying attention to everything that they're doing and I want to support them in whatever way that I can. And that just has always been like my personality. It's like I don't have to get anything in return. Just let me honor you, while you're here, because as a creative, I do understand what that feels like. Like, yeah, we may be creating things for ourselves and we may be doing things ourselves because we just want to release that energy. But at the same time, you do want to know if somebody, is feeling what you're doing. You do want to know if you have at least one person that thinks what you're doing is dope. So I just like to get that energy back. That's just, how I feel about it.
Yes, and that's so beautiful, and I appreciate the support. Like, it's so, all over. So I totally appreciate everything, and yeah, I feel it.
Yeah, so I thank you so much for coming on Purple Conversations. And actually, Purple Conversations is a Black girl's blog about faith, soul, in my opinion. So today we talked about soul. Soul is my word for love. I don't like to say love all the time. I just be like, oh, I feel you in my soul. So that's how I feel about you. I feel you in my soul.
Oh, I feel you in my soul. I love it.
Yeah, so I appreciate it, and I'm going to let you go as I got to get ready to go pick up